Information is transferred within the organism from the nucleus to the ribosome during the synthesis of proteins. Information is transferred from generation to generation through inherited units of chemical information called genes. Information can be transferred between members of the same generation through the process of conjugation, transformation, or transduction. In all cases, the carriers of this genetic information are DNA and RNA.
DNA, RNA, and ribosomes are found in all forms of life. DNA and RNA use a genetic code that is shared by all living organisms. This provides powerful evidence to support the common ancestry of all living organisms on Earth. Mendel's law of segregation and independent assortment explain how genetic information can be transferred from one generation to the next. It is important to note that Mendel's laws of segregation and independent assortment only apply to traits coded for by genes that are located on separate chromosomes. As discussed in Chapter 12, genes that are close together on the same chromosome are linked and tend to be inherited together more often. Mendel's laws of segregation and independent assortment do not apply to linked genes.
Mendel's law of segregation states that an organism carries two variations of every trait, called alleles, one from each parent, and these alleles segregate or separate independently into gametes. This segregation occurs during anaphase and meiosis. When homologous chromosomes separate during anaphase 1, the alleles of those chromosomes will segregate into separate gametes. One variation or allele for trait ends up in each gamete. When two gametes join during fertilization, the resulting offspring then again has two alleles for the trait.
I continue. The next paragraph is Mendel's law of independent assortment.
Mendel's law of independent assortment states that genes for different traits segregate independently of one another. This independent assortment occurs during metaphase 1 of meiosis. For example, in pea plants, inheriting the allele for purple flower color is an independent event from inheriting the allele for wrinkled peas. This is because the gene for flower color in peas is on a separate chromosome than the gene for pea shape. These chromosomes insert independently in metaphase 1 of meiosis.
Pedigree is a chart that illustrates the inheritance of a trait through several generations. Horizontal lines between two individuals in a pedigree show that those offsprings have had offspring together. Offspring of these individuals are indicated by vertical lines. Circles usually represent females and squares represent males. Circles or males that are shaded usually represent individuals that possess the traits shown in the pedigree.
Examining the pattern of inheritance of the traits shown in the pedigree can give clues to the traits of possible mode of inheritance. Dominant traits tend to be expressed in at least one parent and their offspring because only one allele for the trait is required for it to be expressed. Recessive traits often will be expressed in offsprings, but not in either parents, because the parents are heterozygous carriers of the trait. Sex-linked recessive traits usually appear more often in males than in females. Chapter 14 will discuss the patterns of inheritance seen in non-Mendelian traits.
Thank you. Continue, please.
Before practicing some genetic problems, review the following terms. Genotype, genetic makeup or alleles for the trait in an organism. Phenotype, the physical expression of the genotype in an organism. Homozygous, having two copies of the same allele for a trait. Heterozygous, having two different alleles for a trait. Mendel referred to this as hybrid. Dominant requires only one copy of the allele for the trait to be expressed in the phenotype. Dominant traits are those that are expressed in organisms that are heterozygous. Recessive requires two copies of the allele for the trait to be expressed in the phenotype. Recessive traits are not expressed in organisms that are heterozygous.
Guys, the question is, what is the Mendel's law independent assortment? What is the independent assortment? Law states. You can just find it.
It states that genes for different traits segregate independently of one another.
Thank you. And then, what is genotype and phenotype?
Genotype is the genetic makeup. Like, for example, like the traits that are inherited, like homozygous recessive or heterozygous recessive. Like that.
Homozygous and okay, phenotype.
Phenotype is the like the physical expression, like the physical characteristics.
Oh,
So it could be like purple flowers, white flowers, wrinkled peas, round peas.
All right, good. And then tell me 5 keywords from the text.
5 keywords. Pedigree, that one, which is like a chart that shows like the inheritance.
No, it's fine. Just keywords.
Keyword, okay.
Just the word.
Pedigree, Mendel's
What
law of
else?
independent
What else?
assortment.
Alleles.
Okay, and right now we're gonna go to the practice questions. Just one question about this. The first question. Who would like to read first question?
I'd like to read.
Okay.
Mendel's law of independent assortment is a result of A, the random assortment of The random nature of fertilization of A by sperm. B. Random homologous chromosomes of real genetic combination. C. The random way homologous chromosomes line up in metaphase 1 meiosis. Or D. The random nature of molecular movement at high temperatures. I think it's C.
Why?
It's C because it's independent assortment, so they segregate independently and they line up in metaphase 1.
Second question.
I'll read it. The term hybrid can also mean heterozygous.
Mhm.
Because heterozygous is it's one dominant and one recessive.
Mhm.
So it's hybrid.
The hybrid, because it's one dominant, one